Lamar Jackson has been one of the most electric quarterbacks we've seen in the NFL since Michael Vick. He can run, he can pass. By all accounts, he's a fantastic teammate and leader. The guy can do it all. And as he continues his ascent into NFL stardom, there is one question that seemingly everyone has for the decision makers in the NFL. How is it possible that every NFL team passed on this guy? Obviously, there are the teams like the Chiefs who have Patrick Mahomes and the Houston Texans with Deshaun Watson who didn't need to draft a quarterback. But the player personnel execs in Miami and New York, well, those fellows have some explaining to do. The Lamar slander ahead of the draft was so strong that right off the bat, people were already writing off any possibility of him being a first-round pick. And people started citing claims that now look ridiculous, like questioning his football IQ. Sure, there were questions about his viability as a passer at the NFL level, but the guy was a Heisman Trophy winner and steadily progressed, throwing the ball throughout his time at Louisville. But to question Lamar's IQ, I don't know. Something seems off there. Coaches said he was a consummate student at the game at Louisville. Hindsight is 20/20, but taking a chance on him really seems like a no-brainer. Either way, the folks in Baltimore, who by the way drafted a tight end before Lamar, are pretty happy that they ended up snagging him with the 32nd pick in the 2018 NFL Draft. And the franchise is significantly better off for it. Admittedly, the NFL Draft is a crapshoot. There are no guarantees, especially the later it gets in the draft. But some NFL teams have much different approaches when it comes to draft day. And while a lot of the incompetent franchises flounder around chasing prospects with the most draft clout, or falling in love with a guy over some silly story, a la Mitch Trubisky driving an old sedan around, the Ravens went into this draft with a genius plan to get the guy that they wanted at the best price. And boy, did it ever work. Interestingly enough, our story starts off with the former Ravens executive who actually retired ahead of the 2018 draft, Ozzie Newsome. Newsome had been a front office executive forever. In fact, his tenure with the Ravens franchise actually preceded the franchise's move to Baltimore. It started back in 1991 when they were the original Cleveland Browns, and he remained with the franchise all the way until February of 2018, when it was announced that he would be stepping down for assistant GM Eric DeCosta to take over. But as a parting gift of sorts, he and DeCosta devised a masterful plan to get Jackson in Baltimore and fill a number of important roles on the team going forward. To understand the depths of the duo's plan, it is important to consider the context of the 2018 draft class, which was loaded with quarterbacks who, for one reason or another, had generated a ton of pre-draft buzz. Ahead of the draft, the discussion was heated. Which of the 5 quarterbacks should, and perhaps more importantly would, be taken first overall? And of course, where would the rest of the prospects land? Jackson aside, the rest of the quarterback class was comprised of the prototypical quarterback models, either in stature or pedigree, most of whom played at big-time programs. Guys like Sam Darnold of USC, Baker Mayfield of Oklahoma, Josh Rosen of UCLA, and Josh Allen, who wowed scouts with his arm strength while he played at the University of Wyoming. The order that these guys would be taken was debated ad nauseum, but there was one reoccurring theme across the networks that almost all the talking heads seemed to be in agreement on. Lamar was the biggest question mark of them all. Bill Polian, a tenured NFL exec, went on ESPN's airwaves and described Jackson as short and a little bit slight. Clearly not the thrower that the other guys are. The accuracy isn't there.
Whether he will ever be a good enough passer to be a winning NFL quarterback, as everyone here says, there's a lot of work to do there.
An interesting choice of words considering that one of Jackson's contemporaries, Baker Mayfield, hardly eclipsed 6 feet, and Josh Allen had only completed 56.3% of his passes against much worse competition. Unsurprisingly, this rubbed Lamar supporters the wrong way, as he had arguably achieved the most with the least in college, and it was between him and Mayfield for which of the two had the most impressive college resume. But for whatever reason, whether it was interviews, anecdotes, play style, or game tape, Jackson was slighted at every turn. Surely this was infuriating Jackson's camp, but little did they know that this was playing right into Newsome and DeCosta's hand. Going into the draft, the Ravens brass had one primary focus: to improve their offense. The team had a solid defensive foundation, but they felt that they needed to shake up the team on the offensive side of the ball, as it had been floundering under the leadership of longtime quarterback Joe Flacco. It wasn't just that they felt that they had question marks on the roster, but they believed that the 2018 draft class was loaded with offensive talent. This, coupled with the other teams appearing so down on Jackson, made it seem like a grand opportunity to capitalize on. DeCosta reflected on their draft outlook, explaining, With the way the draft fell that year, we saw a way to really improve our offense. We were hoping the phone was going to ring starting at 16. Their strategy, quantity, meaning they were anxious and ready to parlay their number 16 overall pick into as many of their draft targets as they could. And as luck would have it, the phone did ring. The Buffalo Bills called up wanting to trade up to number 16 to snag Josh Allen, an opportunity that DaCosta & Co. jumped at, moving back to 22 while netting the Bills' number 65 pick and only surrendering their number 154 pick in the process. The move surprised a lot of draft analysts, but the Ravens felt that the move would give them a better chance to land more of the players that they wanted. Alas, this deal was not enough to quench DaCosta and Newsom's thirst for quantity. And when the clock started ticking on the number 22 pick, they started to shop their pick again. This time it was Tennessee on the phone, who was enthralled with the opportunity to move up 3 spots to secure the opportunity to draft Alabama linebacker prospect Rashaan Evans. The Ravens sent the number 22 and 215 pick to Tennessee for the number 25 and number 125 pick, again, placing emphasis on quantity. Now, what may come as a surprise to those unfamiliar with the 2018 draft is that once the 25th pick rolled around, the Ravens did not try to trade it away to net more picks, and they didn't even take Lamar there either. Instead, they took tight end Hayden Hurst, a player that DaCosta said they loved. You'd think that if they loved Lamar Jackson so much, they would have sprung at the opportunity to take him that late in the draft, but nope, they went with a tight end instead. When asked if looking back he was nervous that they were getting greedy and waiting on picking Jackson, DaCosta said, we were, but I think you've got to stay as clinical in the moment as you can and really just go with all your best information and the plan. So yeah, you're always nervous. You accept that you'll lose some players working this way. Seems like a pretty big chance to take if you think that a player is your guy, but perhaps they knew the true depths of the doubts around the league for Jackson's NFL future, or maybe they were just rolling the dice. We can't be sure, but man, how different would the league look if some other team had scooped Lamar up? Anyways, the next few picks slid off the board, and the Philadelphia Eagles were on the clock with the final pick of the first round. DaCosta and Newsom decided it was time to strike. They called Howie Roseman, the general manager of the Eagles, to see if they were willing to part with the number 32 overall pick. And they were pleasantly surprised to find he was, provided the Ravens shipped out their 2019 second-round pick in addition to their 2018 second-rounder in the deal. And with that 32nd pick, they waited no longer to go get their guy. And Lamar Jackson was officially a Baltimore Raven. The Ravens certainly approached the draft with a carefully thought-out plan and executed it masterfully. But behind the scenes, there were layers to the plan that only Newsom and DaCosta were privy to, which they believed were instrumental in landing Jackson. The pair told no one how high they were on Jackson. And when I say no one, I mean no one. No sources outside the team, not any of the other executives, not even any of their talent evaluators. We didn't share what we were going to try and do with anybody, DaCosta said. Drafts are strange like that. It's just Ozzy and me at the end of the table, the only ones who really know. When you're trying to make a decision as important as that, you try and keep it as quiet as you can. They feared that if word got out, another team would scoop Jackson up or use their interest as leverage against them. He continued to explain, it's not that you don't want to share it with people, but the downside, which will be losing the player, is much greater than the upside of sharing the information with somebody that you care about. It wasn't just keeping their communications on lockdown, they launched a full-scale NFL draft facade and didn't even interview Jackson at the combine. They wanted zero association with the quarterback because it would give them the best chance of remaining under the radar. That is insane when you think about it. When a team invests in a quarterback, especially with the first-round pick, that is a pivotal moment in the franchise's trajectory. One misstep can derail a franchise for years. So when teams are evaluating a potential franchise signal caller, they transform from NFL suits into borderline FBI agents and evaluate their prospect like you wouldn't believe. The line of questioning ranges from invasive to just downright strange. Listen to some of these questions that have come out of the draft in recent years. Chris Sims was asked, "What is your goal for a family going forward? Are you looking to marry young or stay single?" Blake Bortles was asked if his internet girlfriend Lindsay Duke would be there for dinner when team executives came to town. When Geno Smith was getting interviewed, they wanted to know what his drug of choice was on campus. The stuff that they ask these guys is ridiculous. At some point, this kind of questioning is clearly overkill, and some of the questions have definitely rubbed players the wrong way. But let's not get too far off track here. The point is that these NFL executives want to find out every last detail about the player that will dictate the future of the team. And perhaps more importantly to them, their jobs. And despite all of this, Newsom and DaCosta were that confident in Jackson's future as an NFL quarterback They were willing to forgo what is a huge part of so many teams' evaluation process. The obvious contradiction here is if they were so confident in Jackson, then why wouldn't they just scoop him up at the earliest opportunity? That we really don't have the answer to. In all likelihood, it came down to some quantitative finding from their analytics department that showed he could be gotten that late in the draft, and how much value stockpiling those other draft picks would bring the team long term. At the end of the day, there were a lot of factors at play here. Brilliant planning, excellent execution, some trickery, and of course some luck. No doubt the Ravens faithful are eternally grateful that Ozzie Newsome planned such an epic farewell for himself. If you're new here and you haven't subscribed yet, now's a great time to do that by clicking the subscribe button down below. If you liked the video, then like the video, we'd really appreciate it. And last but not least, don't forget to tune in to TPS for more cool videos every single day.